The starship Elysium glided silently through the violet clouds of Lithera's upper atmosphere. Outside the windows, sprawling cities shimmered with lights that seemed alive, floating towers of crystal and metal reaching toward the swirling skies. Captain Elias Kane sat quietly in the observation deck, his hands folded on his lap. The human delegation had traveled across half the galaxy to reach this planet, invited to the first interstellar summit in over 2 decades. It was a moment of pride, but also of delicate danger. Elias had been trained for situations like this. He knew that humans were often underestimated by alien cultures, seen as young, inexperienced, or even primitive. But he also knew humans had a gift for observation, patience, and calmness that could turn the tides of any encounter. He inhaled deeply, his brown eyes calm, though his mind was alert to every detail of the approaching summit. The landing platform of Lithera's central city was like a painting come to life. Sky bridges of transparent crystal curved around massive towers. Ships from dozens of worlds in colors and shapes he had never seen before moved like living creatures among the clouds. The human's shuttle touched down with a soft hum, the ship's magnetic fields locking it in place as the city's welcome lights shimmered in response. From the ramp came Ambassador Marlowe, the human envoy leader, waving to Elias. "Captain Kane, this is it," he said with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "First time humans have been officially invited to a summit of this scale." Elias nodded. "I know. Let's not waste a moment. Remember, calm and observation first. Speak only when necessary." As they stepped onto the platform, the air was different. Not uncomfortable, but slightly heavier, carrying a subtle tang of metals and exotic plants. Several alien delegations had already gathered, their forms strange and varied. Some walked, on multiple legs. Others floated slightly above the ground using anti-gravity devices. Colors shifted across their skins, sometimes reflecting emotion or status. The scene was overwhelming, but Elias's training kept him focused. Then the crowd parted and she appeared. Princess Cerelia, the 17-year-old royal of Lithera. She was tall for her species, her pale lavender skin gleaming under the city lights. Her eyes, bright silver with flecks of gold, scanned the humans with curiosity that quickly twisted into something else. Disdain. Her delicate features were sharp, almost too perfect, and her posture radiated authority beyond her years. "Ah, humans," she said in a voice both musical and cutting. She did not hide her sneer. "So the primitive species finally crawls into our midst. I must say your journey is ambitious, if not entirely foolish." The surrounding crowd tittered, some whispering, others openly smirking. Elias felt the eyes of many alien leaders on him. Most expected a reaction, anger, confusion, or perhaps a clumsy retort. But Elias did none of those. He simply met Cerelia's gaze, his expression calm, then turned and walked away. A hush fell over the immediate area. For a moment, no one moved. Then the whispers grew louder. "Did he just leave?" one Litheran diplomat murmured. Without a word, Cerelia's lips pressed into a thin line. Her pride stung, and she was not used to being ignored, let alone publicly dismissed by a human. But Elias's silence was not weakness. It was a quiet, unspoken challenge. He did not respond to her provocation. He simply chose not to engage, letting the insult lose its power. Elias walked toward the main summit hall, a massive dome of transparent crystal suspended above a plaza filled with alien flora. He could hear soft communications between the human delegation, nervous yet curious. Ambassador Marlowe hurried to catch up with him. "Captain, that was impressive," Marlowe said, shaking his head. "I don't think anyone expected you to react like that. Most humans might have snapped." Elias glanced back briefly. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Observe first. Let them reveal themselves before you act. The princess will show who she truly is eventually. Marlowe nodded, unsure whether to be relieved or anxious. She certainly won't forget that. Indeed, Cerelia did not. As Elias entered the summit hall, she watched from a distance, her silver gold eyes narrowing. She had insulted the human, expecting a sharp reply, perhaps even a clash of egos that would entertain the summit's attendees. But he had refused to play her game, and that made her furious in a way she could not fully understand. Inside the hall, delegates from over 50 worlds had gathered. Towers of glass rose around them. Holographic displays floated above their heads, showing the locations and data of every participating planet. Discussions buzzed in dozens of languages, many of which Elias could not understand. But he didn't need to. His trained mind caught gestures, expressions, and subtle movements more valuable than spoken words. A Lithuanian official approached the humans. "Welcome, representatives of Earth. You may find our summit unusual, but it is designed for observation and exchange. You will have your turn to speak. Eventually." Elias inclined his head politely. "Thank you. We look forward to learning and contributing." His calm demeanor, the lack of any defensive posture, drew a few glances from other alien leaders. Some were intrigued, some suspicious. Across the hall, Sorelia whispered to her advisor. Why did he not answer? Did he not feel the insult, or is this human arrogance? Her advisor, a tall being with skin like liquid silver, tilted their head. "Humans are different, Princess. Perhaps he perceives value in patience, or he chooses to let your words diminish themselves." Sorelia's lips twitched. "Then I will see how long his patience lasts. I do not like being ignored." Meanwhile, Elias walked through the hall, his eyes scanning. He noticed a small group of Lithuanian scientists struggling with a technological display. Without hesitation, he approached and asked a few questions. Within minutes, he suggested an adjustment to the energy flow of their device. The scientist paused, then tried his idea. To their astonishment, the device responded perfectly. Sorelia, noticing this from across the hall, frowned. Her plan to humiliate the human seemed to backfire. Instead of reacting in anger, he moved quietly, carefully, and already earned subtle admiration from some delegates. Her silver gold eyes narrowed in thought. Elias returned to the human delegation. Marlowe was beaming now, clearly impressed. "Captain, you just solved a Lithuanian problem in 5 minutes. That will make waves." Elias shook his head. "It's not about showing off. It's about observation, understanding, and timing. The summit is not won by insults. It's won by deeds and reliability. Watch and learn." Later, as Elias explored the summit halls, he noticed more alien interactions. Some species were aggressive, speaking loudly and gesturing wildly. Others were reserved, analyzing every detail. And all around, whispers about the human who refused to respond to the princess's insult began to circulate. By the end of the day, Sorelia was restless. She had not expected this human to remain calm, to observe, and to impress others without confrontation. She had underestimated humans, and for the first time, her pride felt the sting of uncertainty. As the summit's first day closed, delegates retired to their quarters, and Elias returned to the observation deck of the human ship. The violet clouds of Lithra shifted under, the setting suns painting the sky with gold and purple. He stood quietly, thinking not of the insult but of the possibilities ahead. Humans were not here to fight. They were here to show what they could achieve when patience, intellect, and dignity guided their actions. And already, even without trying, Elias had made his mark. The princess's words had no power over him, but they had power over the minds of those who witnessed restraint and capability combined. In the quiet of the observation deck, Elias smiled faintly. The summit had only just begun, and already he knew humans would surprise more than one alien today. Outside, Princess Sorelia gazed at the same sky, a storm of emotions behind her silver gold eyes. Her mind raced with curiosity, frustration, and a begrudging interest. The human had walked away without a word, and somehow that silence had spoken louder than any insult she could have thrown. The next morning, Lithra's twin suns rose slowly above the crystalline towers, casting long shadows across the summit plaza. The alien delegates moved with purpose, discussing trade agreements, energy exchanges, and interstellar treaties. Among them, whispers of the human captain who had refused to respond to Princess Sorelia's insult circulated like a quiet storm. Captain Elias Kane moved through the crowd with his usual calm. The insult from the previous day had been forgotten by most, but for some delegates the human silence had become a puzzle. How could someone be insulted so openly and respond with nothing? It was both unusual and impressive. Cerelia, however, had not forgotten. She paced her quarters in the royal tower, her silver-gold eyes narrowing with irritation. He walked away, and yet everyone noticed. Why does it matter? She asked her advisor, Thales, a slender being with skin like liquid mercury. Thales regarded her calmly. Perhaps, Princess, humans are different from us. They do not react like other species. His silence is not weakness. It is discipline. That is unusual in someone so young. Cerelia's small fists clenched. I do not care about discipline. He must answer. I will not be ignored again. Meanwhile, Elias had begun his day at the summit with careful observation. Unlike many delegates who immediately sought attention, he watched interactions, studied cultural norms, and quietly learned. His first stop was the Lithuran Technology Pavilion, where alien inventors displayed devices beyond human imagination, floating, energy crystals, anti-gravity transport modules, and holographic interface systems. A group of Lithuran engineers was struggling with a device designed to stabilize energy pulses in real time. Their gestures were frantic, voices high-pitched in alarm. Elias stepped closer, observing without interrupting. After a few moments, he spoke in measured tones, his voice calm but confident. Your energy pulses are not syncing with the stabilization core. If you adjust the timing sequence by this fraction, he said, pointing to a holographic display, the feedback loop will stabilize automatically. The engineers paused. Their eyes widened as they tried his suggestion. The device hummed smoothly, glowing evenly for the first time. Murmurs of amazement ran through the pavilion. Cerelia, observing from a balcony above, felt her frustration spike. The insult she had intended to embarrass him had done the opposite. The human had quietly impressed the very people she sought to influence. Across the hall, whispers spread among other delegates. The human captain. He seems patient, careful, and clever. He does not respond to insults, yet he solves problems. Perhaps humans are more capable than we assumed. For Elias, the outcome was irrelevant. He never sought recognition, only understanding. He moved on to the Diplomatic Exchange Forum, where alien representatives traded cultural ideas and knowledge. Some tried to provoke him, testing human reactions. A floating alien from the planet Xyrith, whose skin shimmered like liquid glass, made a mocking gesture, imitating human gestures incorrectly. Elias did not react. He simply observed the Xyrithian's movement, cataloging it silently, then continued his conversation with a nearby delegation. By midday, Cerelia could no longer contain her curiosity. She descended from her quarters and approached the human delegation under the guise of formal greeting. Her silver-gold eyes studied Elias, searching for any sign of weakness or pride. Captain Kane, she said smoothly, her tone regal, yet sharp. It seems yesterday's insult did not disturb you. Do you find our customs beneath notice? Elias looked at her calmly, his expression unreadable. Not beneath notice, Princess Cerelia. Every custom here is fascinating. Yesterday, I simply chose not to respond. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Cerelia blinked, surprised. Few beings had ever spoken to her in such a measured way. Most either bowed immediately or argued defensively. Elias' quiet confidence was unfamiliar, yet compelling. Her curiosity grew. And yet you walk among our people and already make an impression. How do you do it? Elias shrugged lightly. By observing first, by understanding before acting, by showing respect for knowledge and cooperation rather than seeking immediate victory in conversation. Cerelia's eyebrows rose. No alien had ever spoken to her in such a way. She felt a mixture of irritation and intrigue. How could a human, so young and inexperienced by Lithuran standards, carry himself with such quiet authority? Meanwhile, across the summit, tensions began to rise among other delegations. Some had hoped humans would react poorly, giving them an advantage in negotiations. Now their expectations had failed. The human delegation was calm, collected, and quietly competent. Murmurs of doubt spread through several delegations. Perhaps humans were not so easy to manipulate after all. Elias spent the afternoon visiting the cultural exchange galleries, where alien art and technology were on display. He studied each exhibit, with attention, asking questions, offering small suggestions, and connecting ideas across species. Slowly, humans began to earn subtle admiration. Not because they were flashy or loud, but because they approached every problem with thoughtfulness and ingenuity. Sirelia, who had been watching him from a distance, could not help but notice. Her initial impression of humans as simple or primitive was fading. The more she observed Elias, the more she realized her insult had been based on ignorance, and the human's quiet demeanor only amplified her awareness. She returned to her advisor later that day, her silver gold eyes glinting with frustration and curiosity. "Thalas, I must know. How does he do it? He has no force, no weapons, no power to compel respect, yet everyone notices him." Thalas smiled slightly. "Princess, that is the human way. They do not command through fear or pride. They earn respect through action, patience, and clarity. He is showing you humans are not easily dismissed." Sirelia stared at him in silence. It was a lesson she had not wanted to learn so quickly. As the day progressed, the Summit Council convened for its first official session. Elias, representing Earth, stood among dozens of delegates, each species vying to assert their dominance. Speeches were delivered, proposals debated, and alliances subtly tested. Throughout, Elias remained calm, listening carefully, noting the nuances of alien behavior. When his turn came to speak, he did so without grandstanding. "Esteemed delegates," he said, his voice steady, "Earth comes not to dominate but to contribute. We offer cooperation, understanding, and shared knowledge. We do not assume superiority, but we do value integrity, observation, and constructive dialogue. We hope our presence can bring insight, not conflict." The room fell silent for a moment, absorbing the unusual tone. Some delegates nodded, impressed by the humility paired with quiet authority. Others exchanged glances, uncertain what to make of this calm human presence in their midst. Sirelia, standing near the back, felt an unfamiliar sensation: respect. She did not want to admit it, but the human captain's words, delivered without arrogance, carried weight. After the session, Elias returned to the human delegation's quarters. Ambassador Marlowe greeted him with excitement. "Captain, that was extraordinary. You spoke carefully, yet you commanded attention. You've already shifted opinions." Elias shook his head. "I did not shift opinions. I simply did what any careful observer would do. Respect comes from understanding, not confrontation. Watch the summit closely. Human influence is subtle, but it will grow." As night fell over Lithera, the twin moons rose, casting soft light across the city. Sirelia returned to her quarters, still thinking about the human captain. Her earlier arrogance had faded into curiosity. She could not deny that his calm intelligence fascinated her, even irritated her in ways she could not articulate. She stared at the moonlight reflecting off the crystal towers. "Perhaps humans are not as simple as I believed," she whispered, her voice soft but thoughtful. "And perhaps this human captain is more than I expected." Outside, Elias stood on the observation deck of the human ship, gazing at the glowing city below. He knew the real challenge of the summit was only beginning. Allies and rivals alike would test patience, intelligence, and diplomacy in the coming days. Yet, he felt confident. Humans had a unique strength, not in physical power, but in calm observation, adaptability, and quiet confidence. And already, even without trying, Elias had begun to leave a mark that could not be erased. Somewhere in the royal tower, Princess Sirelia also knew this. She had insulted the human, expecting a reaction, yet he had walked away silently. That silence had spoken, louder than any words, and now she had to wonder, what else could humans do that she had not yet imagined? The morning sun of Lithera cast long, violet shadows across the summit plaza. The air was alive with the hum of anti-gravity vehicles, chatter of alien languages, and the occasional laughter of delegates. Captain Elias Kane moved calmly through, the crowd observing the interactions carefully. He had learned that in a place like this, subtle gestures and small actions often revealed more than words. Princess Cerelia watched him from the balcony of her royal tower. Her silver-gold eyes narrowed, thoughts racing. The human captain had ignored her insult and impressed others with his calm intelligence. She could not allow him to continue unchallenged. Pride would not permit it. "Thalas," she said, her voice firm. "He has already made waves among the delegates. If I do nothing, humans may gain influence before I even speak again. I will test him, see if his calm can survive a challenge." Thalas nodded. "Princess, remember, humans respond differently. Do not underestimate his patience and cleverness." Cerelia only smiled faintly. "I do not intend to underestimate him. I intend to test him." Later that morning, the summit announced a challenge arena, a Litheran tradition designed to display intellect, strategy, and adaptability. Delegates could participate individually or in teams, facing puzzles, logic tests, and simulations. Cerelia saw an opportunity. She strode toward the human delegation, her movements precise and regal. Elias noticed her approach and waited calmly, his expression neutral. "Captain Kane," she said, "you have observed and impressed, but observation alone does not prove capability. Will you accept a challenge, a contest of wit and strategy?" Elias regarded her for a moment, then nodded. "If it is meant to test understanding and intellect, I will participate. Humans value learning through challenge as much as discussion." The announcement of the contest sent murmurs through the summit. Delegates whispered, curious about this unusual human who had remained silent yesterday, only to step forward today. The arena itself was a massive structure of transparent material, suspended above a plaza filled with alien observers. Inside, holographic projections displayed intricate puzzles, mazes, and simulations of energy systems. Elias and Cerelia were each given a console. The challenge began. The simulation projected a collapsing energy network across multiple planets. Delegates had to reroute energy flows, stabilize core systems, and prevent simulated disasters, all under time constraints. Cerelia moved quickly, her fingers dancing over her console with precision. She had trained for this challenge her whole life. She expected the human to struggle, falter, or make mistakes. But Elias moved differently. He observed the simulation carefully, tracing connections, analyzing patterns. He did not rush. His fingers moved with purpose, applying logic and creativity. "Interesting," a nearby observer whispered. "The human does not panic. He studies. First act second, that is, different." Minutes passed. Cerelia's frustration grew. She had anticipated competition, but not a human who remained calm under pressure. She attempted a diversion, altering a simulated energy flow to force Elias into a reactive position. He did not react immediately. Instead, he recalculated, adjusted a separate system, and stabilized both networks with a single, elegant solution. Gasps ran through the crowd. Aliens who had doubted humans began to murmur in astonishment. The human did not rush. Yet he completed tasks faster and more accurately than many native Litheran participants. Cerelia's silver-gold eyes widened. Her pride stung. The insult she had intended to embarrass him now felt meaningless. The human's calm mind had overcome her strategy effortlessly. Finally, the simulation ended. A soft chime announced Elias as one of the top performers. Cerelia's console displayed her rank, slightly below his. She stared at the results, unable to hide her shock. Elias turned to her, his expression still neutral. "Well done, Princess Cerelia. Your approach is fast and precise. The human advantage often lies in patience and observation. Cerelia blinked, surprised by the calm compliment. Most beings would have reacted defensively, yet he acknowledged her skill without arrogance. The silver-gold glint in her eyes softened slightly. She had underestimated him, again. Across the arena, delegates began to discuss the outcome quietly. The human, he is clever beyond expectation. He combines patience and logic with adaptability. Perhaps humans should not be underestimated. Cerelia withdrew from the arena later, pacing in her quarters. She replayed the events in her mind, a mix of irritation and intrigue swirling inside her. Thalys. He has no weapons, no power, yet he outperformed me. How? Thalys regarded her calmly. Princess, it is not about weapons or authority. Humans excel in reasoning, adaptability, and foresight. He used your strategy against you without conflict. That is his strength. Cerelia clenched her fists. I cannot allow this. He must not gain influence over these delegates so easily. Meanwhile, Elias did not dwell on victory or defeat. He knew the summit was far from over. The challenge was only the first display of intellect and cooperation. He returned to the human delegation and quietly explained his observations from the simulation. By suggesting minor improvements to device designs and energy systems, he subtly demonstrated human problem-solving without seeking recognition. That evening, the summit hosted a cultural exchange dinner. Aliens from multiple worlds mingled, showcasing food, music, and art. Cerelia, still curious about Elias, approached him again. Captain Kane, she said, her tone softer. Your approach today, it was unusual. Most delegates would have sought to dominate the challenge, yet you remained calm, observed, and applied logic. Elias smiled faintly. I believe calm observation often reveals solutions that rash action cannot. Respect for others' methods is also a part of understanding. Cerelia paused, her pride slowly yielding to curiosity. Do all humans behave this way? Elias shrugged lightly. Many do, though each individual is different. But humans value cooperation and learning. We prefer to demonstrate ability through action rather than confrontation. Her silver-gold eyes studied him closely. I underestimated you, and perhaps my people underestimated humans too. Elias inclined his head. That is often the first step toward understanding. Recognizing the unexpected in others allows collaboration and growth. The dinner continued, but Cerelia could not focus on the music or food. She kept glancing at Elias, noting his interactions with other delegates. Unlike most, he never boasted or flaunted success. Instead, he shared ideas, suggested improvements, and quietly earned respect. Back in her quarters later, Cerelia spoke to Thalys. I must learn more about him. This human. He is clever, composed, and unshakable. I feel challenged in a way I have never felt before. Thalys nodded. Indeed, Princess. Humans have qualities that many species overlook. He does not react as we expect, and that is why he succeeds. The night passed with quiet reflection. Elias, standing on the observation deck of the human ship, looked out over Lithera's glowing towers. The challenge had been successful, not because of recognition, but because he had observed, acted, and learned. The summit was moving in subtle, important ways. And somewhere in the royal palace, Cerelia stared at the twin moons, her silver-gold eyes reflecting a mixture of frustration, fascination, and grudging respect. The human captain had challenged her expectations and won, not through force but through calm, intelligence, and patience. The princess, proud and headstrong, realized she had learned a valuable lesson. Humans were different. They were unpredictable, yet reliable. They did not follow the same rules of pride or aggression that many alien species did, and Elias Kane was not a human to be dismissed lightly. The summit was far from over. Challenges, debates, and negotiations awaited. Yet both the human and the young alien princess had begun an unspoken understanding, one that would influence the course of the summit. and perhaps the future of interstellar relations. The next day promised more tests, more interactions, and more chances to observe and impress. And while Cerelia struggled to reconcile her pride with her growing curiosity, Elias prepared for the subtle, quiet influence humans were beginning to wield, through intelligence, patience, and the simple power of calm observation. The summit had reached its third day, and Lithera's towers shimmered like living jewels under the twin suns. Captain Elias Kane moved through the bustling corridors of the summit with quiet purpose. Each day brought new interactions, challenges, and opportunities to observe. Humans had arrived to show diplomacy and intellect, and already subtle changes were taking shape among alien delegates. Princess Cerelia observed from her royal chambers, her silver-gold eyes reflecting a mixture of pride, curiosity, and unease. Elias Kane had challenged her assumptions and gained admiration without ever raising his voice. She had begun to understand that humans possessed a kind of power unlike any she had seen. That morning, a logistical crisis arose. One of the summit's energy conduits, responsible for stabilizing environmental systems across the plaza, malfunctioned. Transparent walkways shook slightly, and floating lights flickered unpredictably. Panic began to ripple through some delegates. Elias, noticing the issue from a distance, stepped forward calmly. "Let me see," he said, moving toward the control console. A Litheran engineer waved him off nervously. "Captain Kane, this is delicate. Our protocols are complicated." Elias nodded, hands relaxed. "I understand. I just want to observe. First." Within moments, he traced the issue to a misalignment in the flow regulators. He adjusted a few settings, recalculated the output, and within seconds, the conduit stabilized. Lights steadied, walkways calmed, and the delegates stopped, their panicked chatter. Murmurs ran through the summit crowd. "The human," one Litheran whispered. "He solved it in minutes." "Without full training?" another asked in awe. Princess Cerelia, watching from above, clenched her fists. Frustration twisted into admiration. He did that calmly, without arrogance. Why does he impress me so?" Later, in the cultural exchange forum, Elias continued to demonstrate human ingenuity in quiet ways. He suggested improvements to alien food preservation methods, showed subtle tweaks in energy storage devices, and offered new strategies for interstellar communication. He never boasted, yet the effects were unmistakable. Alien delegates began, seeking his advice, noting the efficiency and clarity of his thinking. Cerelia approached him cautiously, still uncertain how to feel about the human. "Captain Kane," she said, her tone softer than before, "you seem to navigate our systems with ease. And yet, you do not dominate anyone. Why?" Elias regarded her steadily. "Because dominance is not my goal, Princess Cerelia. Humans value understanding, cooperation, and problem-solving. We find that collaboration often produces better results than competition." Her silver-gold eyes studied him. "I see, but you still gain influence." Elias smiled faintly. "Influence comes naturally when trust and competence are evident. It is not forced, it is earned." Cerelia's lips twitched in an almost smile. She had underestimated humans, and now she realized her pride had blinded her. The human captain was not just clever. He was consistent, composed, and ethical. A combination rare even among aliens. The afternoon brought a trade negotiation session. Delegates from multiple worlds presented their proposals, hoping to gain favor with influential species. Humans had little in material technology to offer compared to some, but Elias focused on ideas, strategy, and knowledge sharing. One alien delegation attempted to test him with a tricky proposal. They offered a system of trade routes that appeared beneficial, but carried hidden complications. Most aliens would have been tempted by the promise of immediate gain. Elias analyzed the proposal carefully, cross-checking data and predicting outcomes. Then he proposed adjustments that maximized mutual benefit, highlighting risks and offering solutions. Delegates were amazed. The human captain, he sees far ahead, murmured one Xyrithian, not for his own gain, but for everyone's advantage. Saralia, observing silently, felt her pride twist uncomfortably. She had expected humans to be predictable, perhaps reckless, yet Elias demonstrated patience, insight, and fairness. Her initial intention to test him through insult now seemed trivial in comparison to the quiet influence he wielded. That evening, the summit hosted a ceremony of alliances, where delegates signed preliminary agreements and memorandums. Elias was approached by several alien leaders, seeking his advice on strategy, negotiation, and collaboration. He provided thoughtful, balanced guidance, earning trust and respect without ever demanding recognition. Princess Seralia finally approached him privately on a balcony overlooking Lithera's glowing cityscape. The twin moons reflected silver light across the towers, casting long, delicate shadows. "Captain Kane," she said softly, her voice almost hesitant, "I must admit, I misjudged you. Your patience, intellect, and composure are unlike anything I expected." Elias regarded her evenly. "Thank you, Princess Seralia. Misjudgment is natural when one does not understand another species. But learning is always possible." Seralia's silver-gold eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "I suppose I am learning, then, about you, about humans, and about myself." Elias inclined his head slightly. "Sometimes the greatest understanding comes from observing others without haste or prejudice. Humans, like other species, are flawed, but we strive to act with clarity, ethics, and patience." She looked away for a moment, her pride warring with newfound respect. "I underestimated all of this," she admitted softly. The next day, the summit held a simulation of planetary diplomacy, designed to test cooperation and strategy among mixed delegations. Elias and the human team worked alongside representatives from other species. Where some delegates attempted to dominate the simulation, Elias encouraged discussion, planning, and shared problem-solving. The results were better than any other team. Efficiency, innovation, and harmony were evident. Seralia, assigned to a separate team, could not help but notice the human captain's success. She realized that his influence was subtle, but undeniable. Where other species used displays of force or authority, humans relied on calm intelligence and consistent effort, and the summit had begun to recognize that. During a brief recess, Seralia approached Elias once more. "Captain Kane, your methods are frustratingly effective. You do not seek glory, yet you earn it." Elias gave a small, polite smile. "Effectiveness does not require glory, Princess. It requires observation, analysis, and understanding. Recognition is a byproduct, not the goal." Her silver-gold eyes reflected both irritation and admiration. "I do not know if I will ever understand humans fully." "Perhaps not," Elias said softly. "But understanding begins with patience and willingness to learn. Even small steps reveal much." As night fell, Seralia retreated to her chambers. She sat silently, reflecting on the past days. Her initial plan, to insult and embarrass the human captain, had failed. Instead, she had witnessed patience, intelligence, and quiet influence. She realized that humans were different, and their differences were strengths, not weaknesses. Meanwhile, Elias stood on the observation deck of the human ship, gazing at the glowing city below. He knew the summit was far from over. Challenges and negotiations awaited, but the influence of humans was growing naturally. His calm observation, ethical decision-making, and problem-solving were beginning to shape the summit without arrogance or force. In the quiet of her chambers, Seralia whispered to Thalas, "This human, I cannot predict him. He is clever, composed, and honorable. I feel respect, though I do not yet admit it fully." Thalas nodded. "Princess, respect is often the first step toward true understanding. Humans operate differently, yet effectively. You are learning something valuable." Sarah Leah's eyes softened, the silver-gold glint reflecting her inner conflict. She had insulted the human, expecting reaction or confrontation. Instead, he had walked away silently, acted with intelligence, and earned admiration. That lesson would not be forgotten. The summit continued, but the tone had subtly shifted. Where once humans were outsiders, now their calm, clever, and ethical actions drew attention. Delegates began to seek collaboration rather than dominance. And Princess Cerelia, once proud and headstrong, began to learn the first lesson of humility and respect, an understanding that intelligence, patience, and quiet confidence could be more powerful than pride or insult. Elias, observing quietly, felt the subtle shift. Humans did not need to boast, fight, or dominate. They simply needed to act with clarity, patience, and integrity. And already, the ripple of human influence was growing across the summit. Princess Cerelia finally realized that the human captain was not just clever, but someone worth observing carefully. Perhaps she would even learn from him, and perhaps, in the process, discover that humans were far more impressive than she had ever imagined. The final day of the summit arrived with a sky painted in shades of gold and violet. Lithera's towers reflected the twin suns, casting long, shimmering shadows across the plaza. The alien delegations had gathered one last time to conclude the summit, finalize treaties, and celebrate alliances. Among them, humans moved quietly but confidently, their influence evident in subtle shifts of attention and respect. Captain Elias Kane walked through the halls with calm composure. He had spent the past days observing, learning, and quietly demonstrating human ingenuity. Each interaction, challenge, and suggestion had built trust, admiration, and curiosity among delegates. Yet he remained modest, never seeking recognition and always prioritizing understanding over ego. Princess Cerelia stood on the balcony of her royal tower, her silver-gold eyes reflecting the rising suns. She had spent the summit challenging, observing and learning from Elias. Initially, she had sought to embarrass the human captain with a careless insult. Instead, she had witnessed patience, intelligence, and quiet influence unfold in ways she had never imagined. Now, as the summit reached its final session, Cerelia felt a strange mixture of pride, curiosity, and humility. She knew she had underestimated humans, and Elias in particular. The session began with final presentations. Each delegation shared insights, agreements, and proposals. When it was Elias's turn, he approached calmly, standing before the assembly without ceremony. His voice carried clarity, honesty, and subtle authority. Esteemed delegates, he began, over the past days humans have observed, learned, and contributed. We are not here to dominate or assert superiority. We seek understanding, cooperation, and shared growth. Through patience, careful observation, and respect, we have found ways to contribute meaningfully to these discussions. Our hope is that the agreements made here will benefit all participants, fostering collaboration and trust. The room was quiet, absorbing the calm conviction of his words. There was no arrogance, no empty display of power. Yet his influence was undeniable. Delegates nodded, exchanged glances, and some whispered approval. Even those who had doubted humans now recognized their strength lay not in weapons or force, but in intellect, patience, and integrity. Princess Cerelia observed him closely. She realized that Elias's quiet authority combined with humility made him a figure impossible to dismiss. Her pride had shifted from irritation to curiosity, then to genuine respect. After the session, the ceremonial signing of alliances took place. Holographic displays projected the agreements, highlighting the contributions of each delegation. Humans, though newcomers, were prominently credited for their ideas, problem-solving, and facilitation of understanding between species. Cerelia approached Elias privately on a balcony overlooking Lithera's sparkling towers. The twin moons cast a silver glow, softening the city's sharp lines. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice calm but carrying unspoken weight. "I owe you an acknowledgement. I misjudged humans, and I underestimated your patience, intelligence, and composure. I spoke harshly on your arrival, expecting confrontation or reaction. Instead, you demonstrated clarity, understanding, and subtle influence. Elias inclined his head respectfully. Thank you, Princess Cerelia. Misjudgment is natural. Understanding another species takes time. Humans, like any species, have strengths and flaws. What matters is how we act and contribute. Cerelia studied him, her silver gold eyes reflecting thoughtfulness. You have earned respect not through force or pride, but through action, patience, and quiet consistency. That is rare, even among my people. Elias smiled faintly. It is our way. Humans value ethics, cooperation, and thoughtful action. Recognition is not the goal. Understanding and contribution are. She nodded slowly. Her pride, once sharp and unyielding, now softened into mutual respect. Then, perhaps I have learned as much from you as you have from observing us. Elias regarded her evenly. Perhaps so. True understanding often flows both ways. Respect grows when we recognize the abilities and intentions of others. Across the summit, delegates observed the interaction, noting the quiet rapport forming between the young princess and the human captain. It was a subtle but powerful display of cross-species understanding and diplomacy, demonstrating that influence could be earned without arrogance or aggression. The summit concluded with a celebration. Aliens and humans shared music, food, and stories from their worlds. Where once humans had been newcomers, now they were respected participants whose contributions shaped the summit's agreements. Delegates approached Elias to offer thanks, discuss ideas, or simply observe the human whose patience and intelligence had impressed all. Cerelia watched him interact gracefully, offering suggestions, advice, and insight. She noted how he listened, carefully, shared ideas clearly, and influenced decisions through collaboration rather than force. Her initial plan to insult him seemed trivial in comparison to the quiet power he had demonstrated. Later, she found herself speaking to him again. Privately in a quiet garden illuminated by soft moonlight, the alien flora glowed faintly, casting gentle shadows. Captain Kane, she said softly, I realize now that humans are not easily shaken by pride or insult. Your influence comes from patience, intellect, and ethical action. That is admirable. Elias inclined his head. Thank you, Princess. Humans often act through observation, understanding, and cooperation. It may seem unusual to species accustomed to displays of power, but it is effective. She smiled faintly, her silver gold eyes reflecting humility. I underestimated you, and humanity. I will not make that mistake again. Elias returned the smile gently. Understanding takes time. Mutual respect grows slowly. What matters is that it exists now and can grow stronger in the future. The twin moons reflected off the towers, casting light across the summit plaza. The delegates, humans and aliens alike, gathered to celebrate the agreement's newfound understanding and the peaceful conclusion of the summit. For humans, the event had proven that patience, intelligence, and ethical action could earn respect, even in an alien world. No weapons, no force, no arrogance were required. Simple, calm observation, clear communication, and thoughtful contributions had shifted perceptions and earned trust. For Princess Cerelia, the summit had been transformative. Her pride and sharp tongue had met patience, humility, and intelligence. She had learned to respect difference, to value quiet strength, and to understand that influence did not always come through power. Elias, watching the celebrations, reflected on the journey. Humans had arrived as outsiders, underestimated, and questioned. Now they had quietly earned respect, reshaping perceptions and fostering cooperation. The summit had demonstrated that strength was not measured in aggression or status, but in character, intellect, and ethical action. As the final ceremonies ended, Cerelia approached Elias one last time before returning to her royal duties. Her expression was calm, her posture regal yet open. Captain Kane, she said, her voice measured, I hope this is not the last time we meet. Your methods, patience, and intelligence, I wish to learn from them. Elias inclined his head respectfully. It would be an honor, Princess. Humans value understanding and cooperation, and I am certain much can be learned from your people, as well. The twin moons glimmered over Lithera's towers as humans and aliens began to depart the summit. Alliances had been forged, understanding deepened, and respect earned. Elias's quiet influence and ethical approach had left an impression that would shape interstellar relations for years to come. Princess Cerelia, standing at her balcony one last time, watched him depart. Her pride had shifted into admiration, her curiosity tempered by respect. The human captain had walked into an alien world, faced insult and skepticism, and emerged as a figure of subtle influence, without confrontation, without arrogance, and without ever raising his voice. For the first time, she realized that humans were not merely participants. They were a force of intellect, patience, and quiet courage. And Captain Elias Kane had shown her, through action rather than words, that strength could take many forms, some far more enduring than pride or power. The summit concluded, leaving humans respected, alliances strengthened, and alien perceptions of humanity forever changed. The 17-year-old alien princess had learned a lasting lesson. Underestimating humans or their quiet resolve was a mistake no one should make.